Hello, comrades. Gonna start reading this. So yeah, come join in a second. I'll give you guys a couple seconds to join, even though it was not a scheduled post. So I think everyone else thought I just give up. And I gotta quickly fix some stuff. Delete something stupid I did. Fix that. Oh god, Cosmo, do not ruin this fucking thing too, bruh. Please. Please, Cosmo. Please, I beg you. Listen, you're the whole reason we have to stop the last thing. Okay. I think she can leave me alone. This is hopeful. Maybe. See you in a second. Alright. Let's get this on the road. Get this on the road, whatever. Okay. Clara Zetkin. Only in conjunction with the proletarian woman will socialism be victorious. 1896. Sorry, I have to drink something before I start my throat. Just dried up, of course. This one. Sorry about that. Alright, well, let's actually go now with this. The investigations of Bachofen, Morgan, the others seem to prove that the social suppression of women coincided with the creation of private property. The contrast within the family between the husband as the proprietor and the wife as the non-proprietor became the basis for the economic dependence and social illegality of the female sex. This social illegality represents, according to Engels, one of the first and oldest forms of class rule. He states, within the family, the husband constitutes the bourgeoisie and the wife the proletariat. Nonetheless, a woman's question in the modern sense of the word did not exist. It was only the capitalist mode of production which created the societal transformation that brought forth the modern woman's question. By destroying the old family economic system, which provided both livelihood and the lives meaning for the great mass of women, during the pre-capitalistic period. We must, however, not transfer to the ancient economic activities of woman those whose concepts of futility and pettiness, that we connect with the activities of women in our times. As long as the old type of family still existed, a woman found a meaningful life by productive activity. Thus, she was not conscious of her social illegality, even though the development of her potentials as an individual was strictly limited. Okay. The period of Renaissance is the storm and stress period of the awakening of the modern individuality that was able to develop and fully completely in the most diverse directions. We encounter individuals who are giants in both good and evil, who spurn the commandments of both religion and morals, and despite equally social, artistic, and political life, and despise equally both heaven and hell. We discover woman at the center of the social, artistic, and political life, and yet there is not a trace of woman's movement. This is all the more characteristic because at that time, the old family economic system began to crumble under the impact of the division of labor. Thousands upon thousands of women no longer found their livelihood and lives' meaning within the family. But this woman's question, as far as one can designate it as such, was solved at that time by convents, charitable institutions, and religious orders. The modern mode of production, slowly undermined domestic production, and not just for thousands, but for millions of women. The question arose, where do we find our livelihood? Where do we find meaningful life as well as a job that gives us mental satisfaction? Millions were not forced to find their livelihood and their meaningful lives outside of their families and within society as a whole. At that moment, they became aware of the fact that their social illegality stood in opposition to their most basic interests. It was from this moment on that there existed the modern woman's question. Here are a few statistics to demonstrate how the modern mode of production works to make woman's question even more acute. During 1882, 5.5 million out of 23 million women and girls in Germany were fully employed, i.e., a quarter of the female population. Just like somehow that got a bit itchy for a second. Alright. Could no longer find its livelihood within the family. According to the census of 1895, the number of employed women in agriculture, in the broadest meaning of this term, has increased since 1882 by more than 8%, in the narrow sense by 6%, while at the same time, the number of men employed in agriculture has decreased by 3%, i.e. to 11%. In the area of industry and mining, the number of employed women workers has increased by 35%, that of men by 28%. In retail trade, the number of women employed has increased by more than 94%, that of men only 38%. These dry numbers stress much more the urgency of solving the woman's question than any highfalutin declamations. The woman's question, however, is only present within the classes of society who are themselves the products of the capitalist mode of production. Thus, it is that we find no woman's question in peasant circles that possess a natural, although severely curtailed and punctured economy. But we entirely find a woman's question within those classes of society who are the very children of the modern mode of production. There is a woman's question for the women of the proletariat, the bourgeoisie, the intelligentsia, and the upper 10,000. It assumes a different form of according to the class situation of each one of these strata. How does the woman's question shape up as far as the upper 10,000 are concerned? The woman of the upper 10,000, thanks to her property, may freely develop her individuality and live as she pleases. In her role as a wife, however, she is still dependent upon her husband. The guardianship of the weaker sex has survived in the family law, which still states, "And he shall be your master." And how is the family of upper 10,000 constituted, in which the wife is legally subjugated to the husband? It is at its very founding, such a family lacks the moral prerequisites. Not individuality, but money decides the matrimony. Its motto is, "What capital joins, sentimental morality must not part." Bravo! Thus, in this marriage, 2 prostitutions are taken for 1 virtue. The eventual family life develops accordingly. Wherever a woman is no longer forced to fulfill her duties, she devolves her duties as spouse, mother, and housewife upon paid servants. If the women of these circles have the desire to give their lives a serious purpose, they must, first of all, raise the demand to dispose of their property in an independent and free manner. This demand, therefore, represents the core of the demands raised by the women's movement of the upper 10,000. These women, in their fight for the realization of their demand vis-a-vis the masculine world of their class, fight exactly the same battle that the bourgeoisie fought against all of the privileged estates, i.e., a battle to remove all social differences based upon the possession of property. The fact that this demand does not deal with the rights of the individual is proven by Herr von Stun's advocacy of it in the Reichstag. Hold on. Just when would Herr von Stum ever advocate the rights of a person? This man in Germany signifies more than a personality. He is a capital itself turned into flesh and blood. How accurate! And if this man has put in an appearance in a cheap masquerade for women's rights, then it only happened because he was forced to dance before capitalism's Ark of the Covenant. This is Herr von Stum, who is always ready to put his workers on short rations if they do not dance to his tune, and he would certainly welcome it with a satisfied smile if the state, as employer, would also put those professors and scholars who meddle in social politics on short rations. Herr von Stum endeavors nothing more than instituting the entail for movable female property in the case of female inheritance, because there are fathers who have acquired property but were not careful in their choice of children, leaving only daughters as heirs. Capitalism honors even lowly womanhood and permits it to dispose of its fortunes. That is the final phase of the emancipation of private property. How does the woman's question appear in the circles of the petty bourgeoisie, the middle class, and the bourgeois intelligentsia? Here is not property which dissolves the family, but mainly the concomitant symptoms of capitalist production. To the degree... My neck is really strained. To the degree this production completes its triumphal march, the middle class and the petty bourgeoisie are hurtling further and further towards their destruction. Within the bourgeoisie intelligentsia, mother circumstance leads to the worsening of the living conditions. Capitalism needs the intelligent and scientifically trained workforce. It therefore favored an overproduction of mental work proletarians and contributed to the phenomenon that the formerly respected and profitable societal positions of members of the professional class are more and more eroding. To the same degree, however, the number of marriages is decreasing. Although, on the one hand, the material basis is worsening, on the other hand, the individual's expectations of life are increasing. So that a man of that background will think twice or even thrice before he enters into a marriage. The age limit for the founding of a family is raised higher and higher, and a man is under no pressure to marry, since there exists in our time enough societal institutions which offer to an old bachelor a comfortable life without a legitimate wife. The capitalist exploitation of the proletarian workforce through its starvation wages sees to it that there is a large supply of prostitutes which corresponds to the demand by the men. Thus, within the bourgeois circles, the number of unmarried women increase all the time. The wives and daughters of these circles are pushed out into society so that they may establish for themselves their own livelihood, which is not only supposed to provide them with bread, but also with mental satisfaction. In these circles, women are not equal to men in the form of possessors or private property as they are in the upper circles. The women of these circles have yet to achieve their economic equality with men, and they can only do so by making two demands: the demand for equal professional training and the demand for equal job opportunities for both sexes. In economic terms, this means nothing less than the realization of free access to all jobs and untrammeled competition between men and women. The realization of this demand unleashes a conflict of interest between the men and the women of the bourgeoisie and the intelligentsia. The competition of the woman in the professional world is the driving force for the resistance of men against the demands of the bourgeois women's rights advocates. It is pure and simple, the fear of competition. All other reasons which are listed against the mental work of woman, such as the smaller brain of woman or their allegedly natural avocation to be a mother, only pretexts. This battle of competition pushes the women of these social strata towards demanding their political rights so that they may be fighting politically, tear down all barriers which have been created against their economic activity. So far I have addressed myself only to the basic and purely economical substructure. We would, however, perform an injustice to the bourgeois women's rights movement if we would regard it as solely motivated by economics. No, this movement also contains a more profound spiritual and moral aspect. The bourgeois woman not only demands for her own bread, but she also requests spiritual nourishment, and she wants to develop her individuality. It is exactly among these strata that we find these tragic, yet psychologically interesting Nora figures. Women who are tired of living like dolls in doll houses and who want to share in the development of the modern culture. The economic as well as the intellectual and moral endeavors of bourgeois women's rights advocates are completely justified. As far as the proletarian woman is concerned, it is capitalism's need to exploit and to search incessantly for a cheap labor force that has created the woman's question. It is for this reason, too, that the proletarian woman has become enmeshed in the mechanism of economic life of our period and has been driven into the workshop, into the machines. She went out into the economic life in order to aid her husband in making a living, but the capitalist mode of production transformed her into an unfair competitor. She wanted to bring prosperity to her family, but instead misery descended upon it. The proletarian woman obtained her own employment because she wanted to create a more sunny and pleasant life for her children, but instead she became almost entirely separated from them. She became an equal of the man as a worker. The machine rendered muscular force superfluous and everywhere. Women's work showed the same results in production as men's work, and since women constitute a cheap labor force, and above all, a submissive one that only in the rarest of cases dares to kick against the thorns of capitalist exploitation, the capitalists multiply the possibilities of women's work in industry. As a result of all this, the proletarian woman has achieved her independence, but verily, the price was very high, and for the moment they have gained very little. If during the age of the family a man had the right, just think of the law of electoral Bavaria, to tame his wife occasionally with a whip. Capitalism is now taming her with scorpions. In former times, the rule of a man over his wife was ameliorated by their personal relationship. Between an employer and his worker, however, exists only a cash nexus. The proletarian woman has gained her economic independence, but neither as a human being nor as a woman or wife has she had the possibility to develop her individuality. For her task as a wife and a mother, there remain only the breadcrumbs which the capitalist production drops from the table. Therefore, the liberation struggle of proletarian woman cannot be similar to the struggle that the bourgeois woman wages against the male of her class. On the contrary, it must be a joint struggle with the male of her class against the entire class of capitalists. She does not need to fight against the men of her class in order to tear down the barriers which have been raised against her participation in the free competition of marketplace. Capitalism's need to exploit and develop, and the development of the modern mode of production totally relieves her of having to fight such a struggle. On the contrary, new barriers need to be erected against the exploitation of the proletarian woman. Her rights as a wife and mother need to be restored and permanently secured. Her final aim is not the free competition with the man, but the achievement of political rule of the proletariat. The proletarian woman fights hand in hand with the man of her class against capitalist society. To be sure, she also agrees with the demands of the bourgeois woman's movement, but she regards the fulfillment of these demands simply as a means to enable that movement to enter the battle equipped with the same weapons alongside the proletariat. Bourgeois society is not fundamentally opposed to the bourgeois women's movement, which is proven by the fact that in various states, reforms of private and public laws concerning women have been initiated. There are two reasons why the accomplishment of these reforms seem to take exceptionally long time in Germany. First of all, men fear the battle of competition in the liberal professions, and secondly, one has to take into account the very slow and weak development of bourgeois democracy in Germany, which does not live up to its historical task because of its class fear of the proletariat. It fears that the realization of such reforms will only bring advantages to social democracy. The less a bourgeois democracy allows itself to be hypnotized by such a fear, the more it is prepared to undertake reforms. England is a good example. England is the only country that still possesses a truly powerful bourgeoisie, whereas the German bourgeoisie, shaking in fear of the proletariat, shies away from carrying out political and social reforms. As far as Germany is concerned, there is the additional factor of widespread Philistine views. Alright, sorry, gotta have a bit more fluid. My throat's drying out a bunch. See if anyone's commented at all. No. I'm not going to bed. But yeah. Bruh. Oh yeah, I think it is. And that's why I'm reading in part. I think like more and more people need to like I don't feel like I even need to stop and explain much from this because it's just exactly what's happening almost, other than it's a different time, so like England and Germany and I'm like American, so it's, but still, yeah. Yeah, like she also has some other great speeches and writings. But anyway, let's continue reading her because she is great. Yeah. I'm glad that people are tuning in because I was not checking. I'm just reading. Yeah, let's keep going. As far as Germany is concerned, there is the additional factor. Okay, so yeah, the Philistine braid of prejudice reaches far down the back of the German bourgeoisie. To be sure, this fear of the bourgeois democracy is very short-sighted. The granting of political equality to women does not change the actual balance of power. The proletarian woman ends up in the proletarian, the bourgeois woman in the bourgeois camp. We must not let ourselves be fooled by socialist trends in the bourgeois women's movement, which last only as long as bourgeois women feel oppressed. The less bourgeois democracy depends on its task, the more important it is for social democracy to advocate the political equality of women. We do not want to make us out to be better than we are. We are not making this demand for the sake of principle, but in the interests of the proletarian class. The more women's work exercises its detrimental influence upon the standard of living of men, the more urgent becomes the necessity to include them in the economic battle. The more the political struggle affects the existence of each individual, the more urgent becomes the necessity of women's participation in this political struggle. It was the anti-socialist law which for the first time made clear to women what is meant by the terms class justice, class state, and class rule. It was this law which taught women the need to learn about the force which so brutally intervened in their family lives. The anti-socialist law has done successful work which could have never been done by hundreds of women agitators, and, indeed, we are deeply grateful to the father of anti-socialist law as well as to all organs of the state, from the minister to the local cop who have participated in the enforcement and rendered such marvelous involuntary propaganda services. How then can one accuse us social democrats of ingratitude? Amusement. Yet another event must be taken into consideration. I am referring to the publication of August Bebel's book, Woman and Socialism. This book must not be judged according to its positive aspects or its shortcomings. Rather, it must be judged within the context of the times in which it was written. It was more than a book. It was an event, a great deed, very accurate. The book pointed out for the first time the connection between the woman's question and historical development. For the first time, there sounded from this book the appeal. We will only conquer the future if we persuade the woman to become our co-fighters. In recognizing this, I am not speaking as a woman, but as a party comrade. Yeah, definitely things to conquer, and I think, a lot of that, in part, is what she means when she says that we should view, a lot of bourgeois women's rights as justified still. It's just, not the ones that actually make it worse for proletarian women, which there are now plenty. But yeah, that too. Just, I think, something like she wrote, women should have, but I think it should include men should make sure they're the ability and expectation to be fathers and husbands and caretakers of their families needs to be equally expected or fairly divided, because it doesn't need to or something, but if a woman has a baby, the father should be expected to stay home with her as long as she needs, so he should get that paid time off too, essentially. It's an example I can think of for the house life. And yeah. Our guiding thought must be, we must not conduct special women's propaganda, but socialist agitation among women. The petty, momentary interests of the female world must not be allowed to take up the stage. Our task must be to incorporate the modern proletarian woman in our class battle. Very true. We have no special tasks and you see right here, I feel like some of the things she's calling petty aren't always as petty as, I don't always fully agree with her either, but I think she's great overall. That's great insight. I don't think there's anyone I've 100% agreed with. Yeah. Those reforms for women, which must be accomplished within the framework of society, are demanded within the minimal program of our party. And that's true, it should be discussed. Not as a fight. We shouldn't fight against the bourgeoisie for that. We should discuss with each other for that, so actually I do agree. Yeah. That's Women's propaganda must touch upon all those questions which are of great importance to the general proletarian movement. The main task is, indeed, to awaken the woman's class consciousness and to incorporate them into the class struggle. The unionization of female workers is made extremely difficult. During the years 1892 until 1895, the number of female laborers organized in the central trade unions grew to around 7,000. If we add to this number the female workers organized in local unions and realize that there are at least 700,000 female workers actively involved in large industrial enterprises, then we begin to realize the magnitude of the organizing work that still lies ahead of us. Our work is made more burdensome by the fact that many women are active in the cottage industry and can, therefore, be organized only with great difficulty. Then, we also have to deal with the widely held belief among young girls that their industrial labor is only transitory and will be terminated by their marriage. For many women, there is the double obligation to be active in both the factory and the home. All the more necessary is for female workers to obtain a legally fixed workday, whereas in England, everybody agrees that the elimination of the cottage industry, the establishment of a legal workday, and the achievement of higher wages are important prerequisites for the unionization of female workers. In Germany, in addition to these obstacles, there is also the enforcement of our unionization and assemblage laws. The complete freedom to form coalitions, which has been legally guaranteed to the female workers by the empire's legislation, has been rendered illusory by the laws of individual federal states. I do not even want to discuss the manner in which the right to form unions is handled in Saxony, as far as one can even speak of a right there. But in the two largest federal states, in Bavaria and Prussia, the union laws are handled in such a way that women's participation in trade union organizations is becoming more and more of an impossibility. Most recently in Prussia, the district of the liberal eternal candidate for minister, Herr von Bennigsen, has achieved everything humanly possible in the interpretation of the law of unionization and assemblage. In Bavaria, all women are excluded from public meetings. In the chamber there, Herr von German name should be illegal. Sorry, I'm joking. F. Declared very openly that in the handling of the law of unionization, not only the text, but also the intention of the legislators should be taken into account. Herr von F. is in the most fortunate person. Wait, no, it's not even one. I'm sorry, that was dumb. I have no idea how to pronounce that name, though, nonetheless. My deepest apologies, comrades. And the thing is, it's like, part of it is just, I have dyslexia, so, like, all that is like, oh no. Too many tall little letters that confuse. That's the big issue there. Sorry, that got distraction. The most fortunate position to know exactly what were the intentions of the legislators, all of whom have since died, Before Bavaria became more lucky than anybody could have imagined in their wildest dreams by appointing Herr von Frey, we'll call it Frey, since at least we can do that one. Frezich, I don't know. Minister of Police. By appointing Herr von Frezich as heir of Minister Police, that does not surprise me at all, because whoever receives an office from God also receives concomitantly intelligence, and in our age of spiritualism, Herr von Frey has thus obtained his official intelligence, and by way of the fourth dimension has discovered the intentions of the long-deceased legislators. I love how she just puts amusement there. I don't know. I love how socialists write a lot of the time. They're pretty funny for people so serious at once. Yeah, anyway. Yeah, there's difference in requirements for liberation. Yeah. Sorry, I was just reading the comments. This situation, however, does not make it possible for the proletarian women to organize themselves together with men. Until now, they had to wage a fight against the police power and the judicial stratagems, and on the surface they seem to have been defeated. In reality, however, they emerged as victors, because all those measures which were employed to smash the organization of the proletarian woman only served to arouse her class consciousness. If we want to obtain a powerful women's organization in both the economic and political realms, then we must first of all take care of the possibility of women's freedom of movement by fighting against the cottage industry for shorter working hours, and above all against what the ruling classes like to call the right to organize. Yeah. Like, it kind of reminds me of, like, how, to help out, I put, like, a slash and then an S to make sure people know, hey, I'm being a bit sarcastic and stuff, and, yeah, just cool to see, like, people be people forever. In a weird way, if that make any sense. Which, still all really relevant and still, like, kind of scary, but makes me more hopeful that we have so much written about what we can do now already. So much to take and learn from. We have a lot more tools than we did at the start. It's all kind of the hope. So, if you get what I mean. Anyway, we cannot determine at this party congress what form our propaganda among women should take. We must first of all learn how we ought to do our work among women. In the resolution which has been submitted to you, it is proposed we elect shop stewards among the women, whose task it will be to stimulate the union and economic organization of women, and to consolidate it a uniform and planned manner. This proposal is not new. It was adopted in principle at the Party Congress of Frankfurt, and in a few regions it has been enacted most successfully. Time will tell whether this proposal, when introduced on a larger scale, is suited to draw a proletarian woman to a greater extent into the proletarian movement. Our propaganda must not be carried out solely in an oral fashion. A large number of passive people do not even come to our meetings, and countless wives and mothers cannot come to our meetings. Indeed, it must be certainly not to be the task of socialist propaganda among socialist women to alienate the proletarian woman from her duties as mother and wife. On the contrary, she must be encouraged to carry out these tasks better than ever in the interests of the liberation of the proletariat. The better the conditions within her family, the better her effectiveness at home, the more she will be capable of fighting. The more she can serve as the educator and molder of her children, the better she'll be able to enlighten them so that they may continue to fight on like we did. Sorry, that was my alarm. With the same enthusiasm and willingness to sacrifice for the liberation of the proletariat, when a proletarian then exclaims, "My wife!" Sorry, I had to do it in the Borat accent. I don't know. So bad. Yeah. He will add mentally, "Comrade of my ideals, companion of my battles, mother of my children, for future battles." Many a mother and many a wife who fills her husband and children with class consciousness accomplishes just as much as the female comrades that we see at our meetings. Vivid agreement. Thus, if the mountain does not come to the Mohammed must go to the mountain. We must take socialism to the woman by a planned written propaganda campaign. For such a campaign, I suggest the distribution of pamphlets, and I do not mean the traditional pamphlet on which the entire socialist program and the entire scientific knowledge of our century are condensed on one quarto page. No, we must use small pamphlets which discuss a single practical question from one angle of vision, especially from the point of view of the class struggle, which is the main task, and we must not assume a nonchalant attitude towards the technical production of pamphlets. We must not use, as is our tradition, the worst paper and the worst type of print. But, yeah. This is, I think, I am so grateful for technology and reading all this too, but, yeah. Such a miserable pamphlet will be pulled up and thrown away by the proletarian woman who does not have the same respect for the printed word that the male proletarian possesses. So basically, try out your different aesthetics with your posts. Try using words, like, make it appealing, make it interesting, captivate. Just, think of it that way. We must imitate the American and English tick-tollers who put out pretty little booklets. I just love how, specific this is. Because even a female proletarian is enough of a woman to say to herself, "This little thing is just charming. I will have to pick it up and keep it." Much amusement and many cheers. The sentences which really count must be printed in a great big letters. Then the proletarian woman will not be frightened away from reading, and her mental attention will be stimulated. Now that's fucking everyone, though. This is everyone problem here, pretty much. Men need pretty little things on their posts, too, I feel, nowadays. More so in some... I don't know who's losing more attention. There's probably a difference to an extent, but probably not. It is kind of interesting, though. And I mean, to be fair, I don't know about... Well, obviously it's not illegal to read in Germany, but For instance, male versus female education and stuff like that was very different, so that's something to keep into account. Like, there's some legitimacy to this. It's not just her being like, women have dainty brains. Anyway, because of my personal experiences, I cannot advocate for the plan of founding a special newspaper for women. My personal experiences are not based upon my position as the editor of Equality is what that paper means, which is not designed for the mass of women, but rather they're progressive and avant-garde. But as a distributor of literature among female workers, stimulated by the actions of Frau Nakun, I distributed newspapers for weeks at a certain factory. I became convinced that the women there did not acquire from these papers what is enlightening, but solely what is entertaining and amusing. Therefore, the big sacrifices which are necessary in order to publish a cheap newspaper would not be worth it. Yeah. But we also have to create a series of brochures which bring socialism closer to the woman in her capacity as female proletarian, wife and mother, except for the powerful brochure of Frau Pop. We do not have a single one that comes up to the requirements we need. Our daily press, too, must do more than it has done heretofore. Some daily newspapers have made the attempt to enlighten women by the addition of special supplements for women. The Magdeburger Volkstime. Let's see what that translation is. Okay, that's just the name. I was just double checking. Set an example. Oh, wait, I should have read the whole sentence before being like, oh, what does that magazine name mean? Sorry. An example in this endeavor, and Comrade Goldstein at Zwickau has skillfully and successfully emulated it. But until now, the daily press has regarded the proletarian woman as a subscriber, flattering her ignorance, her bad and uninformed taste, rather than trying to enlighten her. I repeat that I am only throwing out suggestions for your consideration. Propaganda among women is difficult and burdensome, and requires great devotion and great sacrifice. But these sacrifices will be rewarded and must be brought forth. The proletarian will be able to attain its liberation only if it fights together, without the difference of nationality and profession. In the same way it can attain its liberation only if it stands together, without the distinction of sex. The incorporation of the great masses of proletarian women in the liberation struggle of the proletariat is one of the prerequisites for the victory of the socialist idea and the construction of socialist society. Only a socialist society will solve the conflict that is nowadays produced by the professional activity of women. Once the family as an economic unit will vanish and its place will be taken by the family as a moral unit, the woman will become an equally entitled, equally creative, equally goal-oriented, forward-stepping companion of her husband. Her individuality will flourish, while at the same time she will fulfill her task as a wife and mother to the highest degree possible. And, yeah. That was that paper. It was definitely one of my favorites of hers. I also liked her interview with Lenin a lot. I'll look through her thing since it's just called Clara Zetkin. I will link every thing. I click on. It might take you out of, like, might make the page not visible. Oh no, it's making it visible now. I see. Cool. But yeah, like, I think she has a lot of great ideas in general. Right here. This has a lot of great stuff. Good. Clara Zetkin, Lenin on the Woman's Question, from memorandum, my memorandum book. Source: The Emancipation of Woman from the Writings of V.I. Lenin. Publisher. I don't need to read all, but yeah. Comrade Lenin frequently spoke to me about the woman's question. Social equality for women was, of course, a principle needing no discussion for communists. It was in Lenin's large study in Kremlin in the autumn of 1920 that we had our first long conversation on the subject. We must create a powerful international women's movement. On a clear theoretical basis, Lenin began. There is no good practice without Marxist theory that is clear. The greatest clarity of principle is necessary for us communists. In this question, there must be a sharp distinction between ourselves and all other parties. Unfortunately, our Second World Congress did not deal with this question. It was brought forward, but no decision arrived at all. So this is like decades of thought development on her part, by the way. Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean too. And it's clear that that's from first-hand basis, which I guess, like, yeah. I find it funny because, like, this is a great site as a source for Marxists, but I feel like in a lot of ways is not very accessible for people who are not interested, who don't even know to look for Marxism, if you know what I mean. Which is obvious, but I'm not insulting the site or anything. It's like also just not very well put together kind of that way. That makes sense. It's still navigatable enough though, and I have it on one of my pinned sites. Oh, I hate how I accidentally scroll because I'm a fidgeter when I talk. Anyway. I think I finished that. It's Marxist.org, like, that's all it is. I put the link to it in my link tree. Also link every single specific one of these after the thing in my description. Anyway, we went through that. I was already acquainted with what Lenin said and expressed my astonishment at the state of affairs. I was filled with enthusiasm about the work done by Russian women in the revolution and still being done by them in its defense and further development. And as for the position and activities of women comrades in the Bolshevik Party, that seemed to me a model party. It alone formed an international communist women's movement of useful, trained, and experienced forces and a historical example. Movement of working women. That is right. That is all very true and fine, said Lenin, with a quiet smile. In Petrograd, here in Moscow, in other towns and industrial centers, the women workers acted splendidly during the revolution. Without them, we should not have been victorious, or scarcely so. That is my opinion. How brave they were, how brave they still are. Think of all the suffering and deprivations they bore, and they are carrying on because they want freedom, want communism. Yes, our proletarian women are excellent class fighters. They deserve admiration and love. Besides, you must remember that even the ladies of the constitutional democracy in Petrograd proved more courageous against us than did the Junkers. That is true. We have in the party reliable, capable, and untiringly active women comrades. We can assign them to many important posts in the Soviet and executive communities. In the People's Commissariats, the public services of every kind, many of them worked day and night in the party of or among the masses of the proletariat. The peasants, the Red Army, that is of very great value to us. It is also important for women all over the world. It shows the capacity of women, the great value their work has in society. The first proletarian dictatorship is a great pioneer in establishing social equality for women. It is clearing away more prejudices than could volumes of feminist literature. But even with all that, we still have no international communist women's movement, and that we must have. We must start at once to create it. Without the work of our international and its parties is not complete work. Can never be complete. But our work for the revolution must be complete. Tell me how communist work is going on abroad. Um, Sorry, I am really, I don't know if you guys are hearing my voice crack a bunch. It's also like morning time, so I gotta take an extended release Adderall real quick. So, I'm just gonna highlight this is a great idea, highlight the paragraph I was on while I quickly grab a drink. Or not, well, yeah, I think the lemony Gatorade is a bit too acidic too. But still here, still reading. Just quick second. Apparently it's also breakfast time for my cats, but yeah. Be right back. Don't worry, comrades. I am back. I'm just gonna drink this, take this Adderall, get chat a bit till ready. I'm also hoping this stream will be useful for like afterwards to some people too, so my apologies to people who aren't here for the current discussion. Oh, damn. I thought I was unmuting myself and then I found out I was muting myself. Like, I don't know if you can see on the camera. That's how, like, similar to mute and unmute button look on that. Probably can't see well on that camera. Oh well. I'll be looking into that camera you sent me, like, a picture of. So yeah, none of what I was just saying was. That's okay. Thank you for letting. I will start checking chat after each paragraph just to make sure. And also, it's a good time to answer questions, I think, too. Alright. Lennon listened attentively, his body inclined forward slightly, following without a trace of boredom, impatience, or weariness, or even incidental matters. Not bad at all, said Lennon. The energy, willingness, and enthusiasm of woman comrades, their courage and wisdom of times of illegality or semi-legality, indicate good prospects for the development of our work. They are valuable factors in extending the party and increasing its strength, in winning the masses and carrying on our activities. But what about the training and clarity of principle of these men and women comrades? It is the fundamental importance for work among the masses. It is of great influence on what closely concerns the masses, how they can be won, how made enthusiastic. I forgot for the moment who said, one must be enthusiastic to accomplish great things. We and the toilers of the whole world have really great things to accomplish. So what makes your comrades, the proletarian women of Germany, enthusiastic? What about their proletarian class consciousness? Are their interests, their activities concentrated on immediate political demands? What is the mainspring of their ideas? Sorry. Just have to sip this again. Ah. Alright. I've heard some peculiar things on the matter from Russian and German comrades. I must tell you, I was told that a talented woman communist in Hamburg is publishing a paper for prostitutes, and that she wants to organize them for the revolutionary fight. Rosa acted and felt as a communist when in an article she championed the cause of the prostitutes, who were imprisoned for any transgression of police regulations in carrying their dreary trade. They are, unfortunately, doubly sacrificed by bourgeois society. First, by its accursed property system, and secondly, by its accursed moral hypocrisy. That is obvious. Only he who is brutal or short-sighted can forget it. But still, that is not at all the same thing as considering prostitutes, how shall I put it, to be a special revolutionary militarist section, as organizing them and publishing a factory paper for them. Aren't there really any other women in Germany to organize, for whom a paper can be issued? Who must be drawn in your struggles? The other only is the only addressed, or is only a diseased excrescence. It reminds me of the literary fashion of painting every prostitute as a sweet Madonna. The origin of that was healthy too. Social sympathy, rebellion against the virtuous hypocrisy of the respectable bourgeois. But the healthy part became corrupted and degenerate. Yeah, she was just... Sorry, did I like... But yeah, that was Rosa Luxemburg. I don't think she was advocating in favor of prostitution. I do think against the police locking prostitutes up, yeah, and violence against them. But anyway. Besides, the question of prostitutes will give rise to many serious problems here. Take them back to productive work, bring them into a social economy. That is what we must do. But it is difficult and complicated task to carry out in the present conditions of our economic life and in all the prevailing circumstances. There you have one aspect of the woman's problem, which, after the seizure of power by the proletariat, looms large before us and demands a practical solution. It will give us a great deal of work here in Soviet Russia. But to go back to your position in Germany, the party must not in any circumstances calmly stand by and watch such mischievous conduct on the part of its members. I love how he calls it mischievous conduct. Like, reminds me of my cats being a bit dopey at times. Like Cosmo being a doofus right now. And I'm just doing everything I can to make her not bite my computer. There's no way I can show you on camera because the camera's attached to the computer. But it is why I've changed positions, actually, because she wants to beat up my computer for taking my lap away from her. Essentially. Anyway. That's what the word mischievous makes me think of us. Sorry. Totally distracted right there. The Adderall's gonna kick in, but this one takes like 20 minutes. We are definitely gonna make a better recorded version of this, but it'll take longer. Anyway. It creates confusion and divides the forces. And you yourself, what have you done against it? Sex and marriage. I'm glad that Lenin's response was great. Anyway. Before I could answer, Lenin continued, "Your list of sins, Clara, is still longer. I was told that the questions of sex and marriage are the main subjects dealt with in the reading and discussion evening of women comrades. They are the chief subject of interest of political instruction and education. I could scarcely believe my ears when I heard it. The first country of proletarian dictatorship surrounded by the counter-revolutionaries of the whole world. The situation in Germany itself requires the greatest possible concentration of all proletarian revolutionary forces to effect ever-growing and ever-increasing counter-revolution. But working women comrades discuss sexual problems and the question of forms of marriage in the past, present, and future. They think it their most important duty to enlighten proletarian women on these subjects. The most widely read brochure is, I believe, the pamphlet of young Viennese woman comrade on the sexual problem. What a waste! What truth there is in the workers have already read in Bebel long ago, only not so boringly, not so heavily written as in the pamphlet, but written strongly, bitterly, and aggressively against bourgeois society." Sounds good in that hat. Hope it's useful. I actually do want to make a better recorded version. I'll debate on whether or not to add my inserted opinions or not. Yeah. Obviously Lenin is my favorite all the writers of pretty much all of them, I think. I really love Engels too, though. But I also like Zetkin, and I need to read more Female socialist, because I've read some Luxembourg and Zetkin, but those are it. Alright. Yeah, I shall. The extension of Freudian hypotheses seems educated, even scientific, but it is ignorant. Bungling, Freudian theory is the modern fashion. I mistrust the sexual theories of the articles, uh, dissertations, and pamphlets, etc. In short, of that particular kind of literature which flourishes luxuriantly in the dirty soul of bourgeois society. I mistrust those who are always contemplating the several questions like the Indian saint, his navel. It seems to me that these flourishing sexual theories, which are mainly hypothetical and often quite arbitrary hypotheses, arise from the personal need to justify personal abnormality or hypertrophy. I feel like I'm just saying that wrong. In sexual life before bourgeois morality, and to entreat its patience. The masked respect for bourgeois morality seems to me just as repulsive as poking about in sexual matters. However wild and revolutionary the behavior may be, it is still really quite bourgeois. It is, mainly, a hobby of the intellectuals and of the sections of nearest them. There is no place for it in the party, in the class-conscious fighting proletariat. So she writes, I interrupted here, saying that these questions of sex and marriage in bourgeois society of private property involve many problems, conflicts, and much suffering for women of all social classes and ranks. The war and its consequences have greatly accentuated the conflicts and suffering of women in sexual matters, had brought to light problems which were formerly hidden from them. To that were added the effects of the revolution. The old world of feeling and thought had begun to totter. Old social ties are entangling and breaking. There are the tendencies towards new ideological relationships between man and woman. The interest shown in these questions is an expression of need for enlightenment and reorientation. It also indicates a reaction against the falseness and hypocrisy of bourgeois society, forms of marriage, and of the family, in their historical development and dependence upon economic life, are calculated to destroy the superstition of existing in the minds of working women and concerning the eternal character of bourgeois society. A critical historical attitude to those problems must lead to a ruthless examination of bourgeois society, to a disclosure of its real nature and effects, including condemnation of its sexual morality and falseness. All roads lead to Rome, and every real Marxist analysis of any important section of the ideological superstructure of society, of a predominating social phenomenon, must lead to an analysis of bourgeois society and its property basis, must end in realization. This must be destroyed. They're not against having bruh. Uh, like, think back to Freud, like, how much he... You didn't let me finish before he continued saying dumb stuff, but, uh... like, this is what she spat back at him with, though. She's not anti-sex. She's critical of bourgeois sexual morality and immorality. That's what she is saying. And, like, yeah. But yeah, Lennon is a bit of a dick in his part in general, but yeah. Anyway, Lennon nodded laughingly. There we have it. You are defending counsel for your women comrades and your party. Of course, what you say is right, but it only excuses the mistakes made in Germany. That's true. It is a very cultural thing too, and specific things along with. Nah, I'll let Sasha decide whether or not to argue with him or uh, mute him or whatever. Can you really seriously assure me that the questions of sex and marriage were discussed from the standpoint of mature, living historical materialism? Deep and many-sided knowledge is necessary for that. The dearest Marxist mastery of a great amount of material. Where can you get the forces for that now? If they existed, then pamphlets like the one I mentioned would not be used as material for study in the reading and discussion circles. They are distributed and recommended instead of being criticized. And what is the result of this futile, un-Marxist dealing with the question? That question of sex and marriage are understood not as part of the large social question, no, worse. The great social question appears as adjunct, a part of sexual problems. The main thing becomes a subsidiary matter that not only endangers clarity on that question itself, it muddles the thoughts, the class consciousness of proletarian women generally. And that was Lenin's response. Last and least, even the wise Solomon said that everything has its time. I ask you, is now the time to amuse proletarian women with discussions on how one loves and is loved? How one marries and is married? Of course, in the past, present, and future, and among different nations, what is proudly called historical materialism. Now, all the thoughts of women comrades of the women of the working people must be directed towards the proletarian revolution. It creates the basis for a real renovation in marriage and sexual relations. At the moment, other problems are more urgent than the marriage forms of maris or incest in olden times. The question of Soviets is still on the agenda for the German proletariat. The Versailles Treaty and its effect on life of the working woman, unemployment, falling wages, taxes, and a great deal more. In short, I maintain that this kind of political, social education for proletarian women is false. Quite false. How could you be silent about it? You must use your authority against it. Sexual morality. I have not failed to criticize and remonstrate with leading women comrades in the separate districts, I told him. By my criticism, I had laid myself open to the charge of strong survivals of social democratic ideology and old-fashioned Philistinism. I know, he said. I have also been accused by many people of Philistinism. In this matter, although that is repulsive to me, there is so much hypocrisy and narrow-mindedness to it. Well, I'm bearing it calmly. The little yellow-beaked birds who have just broken from the egg of bourgeois ideas are always frightfully clever. We shall let that go. The youth movement, too, is attacked with the disease of modernity in its attitude towards sexual questions and in being exaggeratedly concerned with them. Yeah, basically. And that's why I like questioning it is important. And there are things about the sexual revolution we can still question. And yeah. Like, for instance, he literally legalized gay marriage right after the revolution, and that bit is contextual, but uh, should just add on what the Francis said. Nah, probably spaced out for a second. I'm like having trouble focusing for a second. I just need to finish this. Sorry, it's because I had, like, my brain sometimes works like a cue bar, and I just have to think. Reply to comment, read, move cat, throw away can, etc. Be right back. There we go. Got it all back. Oh, yes. Yeah. I don't think, BS stop that much. Alright. Oh, dang, so I didn't even finish the sentence. Sorry about that. I just finished my drink and then it's like, oh dang, I have to find a way to throw this out. And for some reason, that sometimes it's a weird executive dysfunction thing. Oh yeah, I agree. Like, I think also he's talking about like, why should that be specific to the Communist Party? Because like, why should it be? But I think also I disagree with him a tiny bit on it. I think we should develop maybe a bit more of our own thing, and she disagrees somewhat of him, of course, too, and so I'll also start mentioning what is being said by Lenin and what's being said by Zetkin, since I think you're confusing who's saying what here. But so anyway, Lenin is saying, "We shall have to let that go. The youth movement too is attacked with the disease of modernity in its attitude towards sexual questions and in being exaggeratedly concerned with them." Lenin gave an ironic emphasis to the word modernity and grimaced. "As he did so, I have been told that sexual questions are the favorite study of your youth organizations too. There is supposed to be a lack of sufficient speakers on the subject. Such misconceptions are particularly harmful, particularly dangerous in the youth movement. They can very easily contribute towards overexcitement and exaggeration in the sexual life of some of them, to a waste of youthful health and strength. You must fight against that, too. There are not a few points of contact between the women's and youth movements. Our women comrades must work together systematically with the youth. That is, a continuation, an extension, and exaltation of motherliness from the individual to the social sphere." Ah, my cat moves so I can... Dang, my cat's like... That's what's controlling me. It's not like class society, I guess. It's my cat. Joking. Yeah, I think it's working well. In part, it's just more responding than I want to do while also reading, so I'm thankful. Yeah. Right. There's supposed to be a lack of sufficient speakers at this. Okay, yeah, so they can very easily contribute towards overexcitement and... Yeah, wait, more there. They're not a... Did we already finish this paragraph? "And all awakening social life and activity of women must be encouraged so that they can discard the limitations of their Philistine individualist home and family psychology." But we'll come to that later. And then this is still Lenin talking. "With us, too, a large part of the youth is keen on revising bourgeois conceptions and morality concerning sexual questions. And I must add, a large part of our most promising young people. What you said before is true in the conditions created by the war and the revolution. The old ideological values disappeared or lost their binding force. The new values are crystallizing slowly in the struggle. In relations and thoughts are becoming revolutionized. New boundaries are being set up between the rights and of the individual and the rights of the whole. Sorry, just yeah. Chugged too much soda at once. Anyway, the matter is still in complete chaotic ferment. The direction, the forces of development in the various contradictory tendencies are not yet clearly defined. It is a slow and often a very painful process of decay and growth, and particularly in the sphere of sexual relationships, of marriage and the family, the decay, the corruption, the filth of bourgeois marriage, with its difficult divorce, its freedom for the man, its enslavement for the woman, the repulsive hypocrisy of sexual morality and relations fill the most active mind and best people with deep disgust. Lenin continuing here. The constraint of bourgeois marriage and the family, laws of bourgeois states, extenuate these evils and conflicts. It is the force of holy property. It sanctifies venality, degradation, and filth, and the conventional hypocrisy of honest bourgeois society does the rest. People are beginning to protest against the prevailing rottenness and falseness and feelings of... Wait, so this is... I'm not... This is, zetkin, I think. It is a bit confusing for me, too. Don't worry. So the desire and urge of enjoyment easily attain unbridled force at a time when powerful empires are tottering, old forms of rule breaking down, when a whole social world is beginning to disappear. Sex and marriage forms, in their bourgeois sense, are unsatisfactory. A revolution in sex and marriage is approaching, corresponding to the proletariat revolution. It is easily comprehensible that the very involved complex problems brought into existence should occupy the mind of the youth, as well as of women. They suffer particularly under present-day sexual grievances. They are rebelling with all the impetuosity of their years. We can understand that. Nothing could be more false than to preach monkish asceticism. And the sanctity of dirty bourgeois morality to the youth. It is particularly serious if sex becomes the main mental concern during those years when it is physically most obvious. Wait, what fatal effects it has. Okay, yeah, it is still Lenin. Sorry. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's... The smaller text is all Lenin and the bigger text is all her. Oh, fuck. Sorry, my thing got unplugged. That will cause a lot of problems in a few minutes if I don't fix that. Alright. Yeah. The changed attitude of the young people to the questions of sexual life is, of course, based on a principle and a theory. Many of them call their attitude revolutionary and communist, and they honestly believe that it is so. That does not impress us old people, although I am nothing but a gloomy... I don't know what... How's it? Ascety? Oh, ascetic. Okay. Ascetic. So-called. Sorry, that was my phone. That's the last phone alarm of the morning. Ascetic. The so-called new sexual life of... Okay, my cat is trying to unplug my computer next. You a bad thing. Stop. You are the bad. You are being counter-revolutionary, Cosmo. Alright. Although I am nothing but a gloomy ascetic, the so-called new sexual life of the youth, and sometimes of the old, often seems to me to be... Oh wait, is my mic on? Yeah, okay. Sorry, I was just like... Although, yeah, okay, I already read that. Of the youth, and sometimes of the old, often seems to me to be purely bourgeois, an extension of bourgeois brothels, that has nothing whatever in common with freedom of love as we communists understand it. You must be aware of the famous theory that in communist society, the satisfaction of sexual desires of love will be as simple and unimportant as drinking a glass of water. This glass of water theory has made our young people mad, quite mad. It has proved fatal to many young boys and girls. Its adherents maintained that it is Marxist, but thanks for such a Marxism, which directly and immediately attributes all phenomena and changes in the ideological superstructure of society to its economic basis, matters aren't quite as simple as that. A certain Frederick Engels pointed that out a long time ago with regard to historical materialism. I think this glass of water theory is completely un-Marxist and moreover antisocial. In sexual life, there is not only simple nature to be considered, but also cultural characteristics, whether they are of a high or low order. In his Origin of the Family, Engels showed how significant is the development and refinement of the general sex urge into individual sex love. The relations of the sexes to each other are not simply an expression of the play of forces between the economics of society and a physical need, isolated in thought by study from the physiological aspect. It is rationalism and not Marxism to want to trace changes in these relationships directly, and this dissociated from their connections with ideology as a whole to the economic foundations of society. Of course, thirst must be satisfied, but will the normal person in normal circumstances lie down in the gutter and drink out of a puddle or out of a glass with her rim greasy from many lips? But the social aspect is the most important of all. Drinking water is, of course, an individual affair, but in love, two lives are concerned, and a third, a new life arises. It is that which gives it its social interest, which gives rise to a duty towards the community. As a communist, I have not the least sympathy for the glass of water theory, although it bears the fine title, Satisfaction of Love. In any case, this liberation of love is neither new nor communist. You will remember that about the middle of this last century, it was preached as the emancipation of the heart in romantic literature. In bourgeois practice, it became the emancipation of the flesh. At that time, the preaching was more talented than it is today. And as for the practice, I cannot judge. I don't mean to preach asceticism by my criticism, not in the least. Communism will not bring asceticism, but joy of the life, power of life, and the satisfaction of love, life, will help to do that. But in my opinion, the present widespread hypertrophy in sexual matters does not give joy and force to life, but takes it away. In the age of revolution, that is bad, very bad. Alright. I have to sit up a bit. Sorry. check out the things are. I need to change up the camera again because change my camera angle to deepest apologies. I cannot stay in one position easily. Okay, zoom out a little tiny bit. Bring that gamma more. Alright. Young people particularly need the joy and the force of life. Healthy sport, swimming, racing, walking, bodily exercises of every kind, and many-sided intellectual interests, learning, studying, inquiry, as far as possible in common. That will give young people more than eternal theories and discussions about sexual problems and the so-called living to the full. Healthy bodies, healthy minds. I, neither monk nor Don Juan, nor the intermediate attitude of German Philistines. You know, young comrade, a splendid boy, and a highly talented. And yet, I fear that nothing good will come out of him. He reels and staggers from one love affair to the next. That won't do for the political struggle, for the revolution. And I wouldn't bet on the reliability, the endurance in the struggle of those women who confuse their personal romances with politics, nor on the men who run petticoat and get entrapped by every young woman that does not square with the revolution. The revolution demands concentration, increase of forces from the masses. From individuals, it cannot tolerate or gastric conditions such as normal for the decadent heroes and heroines of D'Annunzio. Dissolutance in sexual life is bourgeois, is a phenomenon of decay. The proletariat is a rising class. It doesn't need intoxication as a narcotic or a stimulus. Intoxication as little by sexual exaggeration as by alcohol. It must not and shall not forget the shame, the filth, the savagery of capitalism. It receives the strongest urge to fight from a class situation. For the communist ideal, it needs clarity, clarity, and again, clarity. And so I repeat, no weakening, no waste, no destruction of forces. Self-control, self-discipline is not slavery, not even in love. But forgive me, Clara, I have wandered far from the starting point of our conversation. Why didn't you call me to order? My tongue has run away with me. I am deeply concerned about the future of our youth. It is a part of the revolution, and if harmful tendencies are appearing, creeping over from bourgeois society into the world of revolution, as the roots of many weeds spread, it is better to combat them early. Such questions are part of the woman question. Alright. Moving on to principles of organization. Lenin glanced at the clock. So this is Zetkin now saying this. Like, what Zetkin say? She's quoting him there. Zetkin, London glanced at the clock. Half of the time I had set aside for you is gone, he said. I have been chattering. You will draw up proposals for communist work among women. Away. What sort of proposals have you in mind? I gave a concise amount of them. Lennon nodded repeatedly in agreement without interrupting me. When I had finished, I looked at him questionably. Agreed, he said. I only want to dwell on a few main points in which I fully share your attitude. They seem to me to be important for our current agitation and propaganda work, if that work is to be led to action and successful struggles. The thesis must clearly point out that real freedom for women is possible only through communism, the inseparable connection between the social and human position of the woman and private property in the means of production must be strongly brought out. That will draw a clear and interactable line of distinction between our policy and feminism, and it will also supply the basis for regarding the workers' problem, and so bind it firmly to the proletarian class struggle and a revolution. The communist women's movement must itself be a mass movement, a part of the general mass movement, not only the proletariat, but of all the exploited and oppressed, all the victims of capitalism or any other mastery. In that lies the significance for the class struggles of the proletariat, and its historical creation of Communist Party. We can rightly be proud of the fact that in the party, in Communist International, we have the flower of revolution, womankind. But that is not enough. We must win over to our side the millions of working women in the towns and villages, win them from for our struggles, and in particular for the communist transformation of society. There can be no real mass movement without women. I gotta quickly change up the camera lighting again. Like, that camera lighting is getting very fucking bad. Sorry, guys, about that. Let's bring it back to that. It's also just a hair thing. Alright. Let's fix that. Cool. I think it's just the lighting color too, sadly. Which changes every time I get out of that other screen that you guys don't see. And let's try doing this real quick. Hold on a second. Cool. You don't need a chair to feel comfortable. Cool. Sorry. Our ideological conceptions give rise to the principles of organization. No special organizations for women. A woman communist is a member of the party, just as a man communist, with equal rights and duties. then there can be no difference of opinion on that score. Nevertheless, we must not close our eyes to the fact that the party must have bodies, working groups, commissions, committees, bureaus, or whatever you like, whose particular duty it is to arouse the masses of women workers, to bring them into contact with the party, and to keep them under its influence. That, of course, involves the systematic work among them. We must train those who we arouse and win, and equip them for the proletarian class struggle under the leadership of the Communist Party. I am thinking not only of the proletariat woman, whether they work in the factory or at the home, the poor peasant woman, the petty bourgeois, they too are the prey of capitalism, and more so than ever since the war. The unpolitical, unsocial, backward psychology of these women, their isolated sphere of activity, the entire manner of their life, these are facts. It would be absurd to overlook them. Absolutely absurd. We need appropriate bodies to carry on the work amongst them, special methods of agitation and forms of organization. That is not feminism, that is practical, revolutionary, expediency. Sorry. I told Lenin that his words encouraged me greatly. Many comrades, and good comrades at that, strongly combated the idea that the party should have special bodies for systemic work among women. That is neither, Lenin continues, that is neither new nor proof, said Lenin. You must not be misled by that. Why have we never had as many women as men in the party? Not at any time in Soviet Russia. Why is the number of women workers organized in trade unions so small? Facts give food for thought. The rejection of the necessity for separate bodies for our work among the women masses is a conception allied to those of our highly principled and most radical friends of Communist Labor Party. According to them, there must be only one form of organization, workers' unions. I know them. Many revolutionary but confused minds appeal to the principle. Whenever ideas are lacking, that is, when the mind is closed to the sober facts, which must be considered. How do such guardians of pure principle square with their ideas with the necessities of the revolutionary policy historically forced upon us? Okay, sorry. To close one eye to see. That's what's going on. All that sort of talk breaks down before inexorable necessity. Unless millions of women are with us, we cannot exercise the proletariat dictatorship, cannot construct on communist lines. We must find our way to them. We must study and try to find that way. Alright. So, immediate demands. That is why it is right for us to put forward demands favorable to women. That is not a minimum, a reform program in the sense of the Social Democrats of the Second International. It is not a recognition that we believe in the eternal character or even in the long duration of the rule of the bourgeoisie and their state. It is not an attempt to appease women by reforms to divert them from the path of revolutionary struggle. It is not that, nor any other reformist swindle. Our demands are practical conclusions. which we have drawn from the burning needs, the shameful humiliation of woman in bourgeois society, defenseless and without rights. We demonstrate thereby that we recognize these needs. And are sensible. Alright, sorry, I had to crack my neck. Cool. The privileges of the man that we hate, yes, hate everything, and will abolish everything which tortures and oppresses the women and workers, the housewife, the peasant woman, the wife of the petty trader, yes, and in many cases the woman of the possessing classes. The rights and social regulations which we demand for women from bourgeois society show that we understand the position and interests of women, and will have consideration for them under the proletarian dictatorship. Not, of course, as the reformists do, lulling them to inaction and keeping them in leading strings. No, of course not, but as revolutionaries who call upon the women to work as equals in transforming the old economy and ideology. Yeah, after this page I'm gonna probably have to stop for now. But I want to do more theory reading too. Let me know if there's someone else you guys want me to read next. Go to Marxist.org, of course. I still have quite a bit to go here, don't worry. But still. I assured Lenin that I shared his views, but that they would certainly meet with resistance. Nor could it be denied that our immediate demands for women could be wrongly drawn upon and expressed. Nonsense, said Lenin, almost bad-temperedly. The danger is present in everything that we do and say. If we were to be deterred by fear of that from doing what is correct and necessary, we might as well become Indian stylites. I think those are things that, like, I don't know what those are quite, actually. So I'm not gonna say because I don't quite know. I'm gonna also turn down saturation a bit because the light I have on me is kind of raw. Sorry, it's because of the constantly like changing sky right now too. Just alright. I need to cut my hair so it stops like falling behind my ears. Sorry, that's just random preference. Do not mean to get distracted by hair. Oh god, I would be bad at everything with talking. No, I wouldn't. Just yeah. Don't move. We can contemplate our principles from a high pillar. Of course, we are concerned not only with the them. I thought I had made that clear enough. Of course, we shan't put forward our demands for women as though we are mechanically counting our beads. No. According to the prevailing circumstances, we must fight now for this, now for that, and, of course, always in connection with the general interests of the proletariat. Oh, okay. Gotcha. That's a good uh comparison to use to a lot of with a lot of communists. Then, alright. Every such struggle brings us in opposition to respectable bourgeois relationships, and to their not less respectable reformist admirers, whom it compels either to fight together with us under our leadership, which they don't want to do, or to be shown up in their true colors, that is, the struggle clearly brings out the differences between us and other parties, brings out our communism. It wins us the confidence of the masses of women who feel themselves exploited, enslaved, suppressed by the domination of the man, by the power of the employer, by the whole bourgeois society. Betrayed and deserted by all, the working woman will recognize that they must fight together with us. Must I again swear to you, or let you swear, that with the struggles of our demands for women must be bound up with the object of seizing power, of establishing the proletarian dictatorship? That is our alpha and omega at the present time. That is clear, quite clear, but the woman of the working people will not feel irresistibly driven into sharing our struggles for the state power if we only and always put forward that one demand, though it were with the trumpets of Jericho. No, no, the woman must be made conscious of the political connection between our demands and their own suffering, needs, and wishes. They must realize what the proletarian dictatorship means for them: complete equality with man in law and practice, in the family, in the state, in society, and to the power of the bourgeoisie. Oh, and end to the power of the bourgeoisie. Yeah. Sorry. Soviet Russia shows that, I interrupted. That will be the great example of our teaching, Lenin continued. Soviet Russia puts our demands for women in a new light. Under the proletarian dictatorship, those demands are not objects of struggle between the proletariat and the bourgeoisie. They are part of the structure of communist society. That indicates to women in other countries the decisive importance of the winning of power by the proletariat. The difference must be sharply emphasized, so as to get the woman into the revolutionary class struggle of the proletariat. It is essential for communist parties and for their triumph to rally them on a clear understanding of principle and firm organizational basis. But don't let us deceive ourselves. Our national sections still lack a correct understanding of this matter. They are standing idly while there is this task of creating a mass movement of working women under communist leadership. They don't understand that the development and management of such a mass movement is an important part of entire party activity. Indeed, a half of general party work. Their occasional recognition of the necessity and value of a powerful, clear-headed communist women's movement is a platonic verbal recognition, not the constant care and obligation of the party. Not right now, no. Right now I'm reading theory. And then I'm going to take a break from streaming and come back probably this evening. What about the men? Agitation and propaganda work among women. They're awakening and revolutionary. and revolutionation is regarded as an incidental matter, as an affair which only concerns women comrades. They alone are reproached because work in that direction does not proceed more quickly and more vigorously. That is wrong, quite wrong. Real separatism, and as the French say, feminism, à la Raborse, probably horribly told. Let's see what that means real quick. Backwards. Feminism, upside down. What is at the basis of the incorrect attitude of our national sections? In the final analysis, it is nothing but an underestimation of woman and her work. Yes, indeed. Unfortunately, it is still true to say of many of our comrades, scratch a communist and find a Philistine. Of course, you must scratch the sensitive spot, their mentality as regards to women. Could there be a more damning proof of this than the calm acquiescence of men who see how women grow worn out in petty, monotonous household work? Their strength and time dissipated and wasted, their minds growing narrow and stale, their hearts beating slowly, their will weakened. Of course, I am not speaking of the ladies of the bourgeoisie who shove on the servants the responsibility for all household work, including the care of children. What I am saying applies to the overwhelming majority of women, to the wives of workers, and to those who stand all day in a factory. So few men, even among the proletariat, realize how much effort and trouble they could save woman, even quite do away with, if they were to lend a hand in woman's work. But, no, that is contrary to the rights and dignity of a man. They want their peace and comfort. The home life of a woman is a daily sacrifice to 1,000 unimportant trivialities. The old master right of the man still lives in secret. His slave takes her revenge, also secretly. The backwardsness of woman, their lack of understanding for the revolutionary ideals of the man, decrease his joy and determination in fighting. They are like little worms which, unseen, slowly but surely, rot and corrode. I know the life of the worker, and not only from books. Our communist work among the women, our political work, embraces a great deal of educational work among men. We must root out the old master idea to its last and smallest root, in the party and among the masses. That is one of our political tasks, just as it is the urgently necessary task of forming a staff of men and women comrades, well trained in theory and practice, to carry on party activity among working women. Millions, for real. Yes, it's a Silent Hill book. It needs to be read by all Silent Hill fans. I will drop the links below. It's for free on this site. There's a million other good books. You can look through this site too. The site itself is already on my, the site where I got this, have this book that I'm reading is in my link tree. And that's in my description if anyone's just wants to go right to it. But anyway. millions building a new life. To my question about the conditions in Soviet Russia on this point, Lenin replied, "The government of the proletarian dictatorship, together with the Communist Party and trade unions, is, of course, leaving no stone unturned in the effort to overcome the backward ideas of men and women, to destroy the old, uncommunist psychology. In law, there is naturally complete equality of rights for men and women, and everywhere there is evidence of a sincere wish to put this equality into practice. We are bringing the woman into the social economy, into legislation and government. All educational institutions are open to them, so that they can increase their professional and social capabilities. We are establishing communal kitchens and public eating houses, laundries and repairing shops, nurseries, kindergartens, children's homes, educational institutes of all kinds. In short, we are seriously carrying out the economic and educational functions of the separate household to society. That will mean freedom for the woman from the old household drudgery and dependence on man. That enables her to exercise the full her talents and her inclinations. The children are brought up under more favorable conditions than that at home. We have the most advanced protective laws for women workers in the world, and the officials of organized workers carry them out. We are establishing maternity hospitals, homes for mothers and children, mothercraft clinics, organizing lecture courses on childcare, it's like highlighting it. I was using the wrong side of the mouse. Exhibitions teaching mothers how to look after themselves and their children, and similar things. We are making the most serious efforts to maintain women who are unemployed and unprovided for. We realize clearly that that is not very much in comparison with the needs of working women, that it is far from being all that is required for their real freedom. But still, it is tremendous progress, as against conditions in Tsarist capitalist Russia, it is even a great deal compared to the conditions in countries where capitalism still has a free hand. It is a good beginning in the right direction, and we shall develop it further. With all our energy, you may believe that, for every day of the existence of the Soviet state proves more clearly that we cannot go forward without women. And so, yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed that. I will put the links to both things I read to you in the description, and then in the link tree I have already in the description. There is, of course, the site itself, so you can look through it and comment anything there that you think, any, writer that you see there, and I will consider it. I don't like all the writers on there. They have every kind of communist. They got Trotskyists and anarchists and Maoists and Marxist-Leninists, which is what I am, and then kind of really weird people too. So, really check out the site though, because it's worth something to just understand who everyone is, kind of. And they have decent selected starting people, and I will go with my own opinions on who are good starting people too, of course. And so yeah, hope you guys have a nice day. I will probably be back this evening.